Okay, the purpose of my research was to find if pet therapy affected depression in the elderly. So depression affects 35 million Americans above the age of 65 and older. 58% of the elderly believe it's normal to become depressed as they age. The elderly population is more likely to seek treatment for physical ailments, medical ailments, rather than for depression. And adults 65 and older account for 20% of all suicide deaths. In my lit review, I found 2 of my 3 studies that were examined that used pet therapy were effective in reducing depression in the elderly. These studies both used dogs in nursing homes. One study did not show significant findings in decreasing depression in the elderly, but that study focused more on how the elderly felt as whenever the dog was taken away, rather than how a dog affected the depression of the elderly in the nursing home. The methods I used was a qualitative approach using single subject ABA design. It was used at convenience through my social work practicum. The subject was a resident at the nursing home. I observed her 3 times a week for 2 weeks. The dog used was a small beagle dog, but was not a pet therapy dog. And the variables identified included mood, language, and connectivity with the resident. These were my findings. The A was without the dog, B with the dog, and A without the dog again, all in 1 week. There's week 1 and week 2. So the first time I met with her, I always asked her how she was doing that day. The first time I met with her, she said not good at all. I always told her to have a good day. And she replied that day, I guess I'll try. She was waiting for a van to come pick her up to take her to the doctor, so she was not happy with the van that would just happen to be picking her up. She was very anxious. She didn't make any eye contact. She was out of breath when she talked to me. She spoke really softly. And she became anxious again as the van pulled up to take her to the doctors. There was no connectedness that day. The next day is when I brought the dog in. I asked her how she was doing. She said, I'm great. And she said how cute the dog was. She was not ready for the day, so she asked if I could leave and come back in about an hour. So when I came back again, I asked her again how she was doing. She said, I'm okay. She said how sweet the dog was whenever I left. She thanked me. Her mood, she seemed very happy. She smiled right away. She continued to smile with the dog there. She raised her voice to talk to the dog like you would talk to pets or babies. She kept her hand on the dog whenever she was talking to me, and she pet the dog goodbye. The connectedness that day, she talked about previous pets she had, and she shared stories about previous pets. And the last day that week, I asked her how she was doing. She said, I'm okay. I told her to have a good day, like I always said. She said, you too, sweetie. Her mood, she smiled, and there was no connectedness. For week 2, the first day I went to see her, I asked her again how she was doing. I'm doing okay. She spoke positively about seeing her brother that weekend. So that was family that was brought up. And she talked about getting exercise, getting up and walking around the nursing home that day. I told her to have a good day, and you too, sweetie. Her mood seemed to be in a great mood. She was very excited about seeing her brother over the weekend, and she smiled. The connectedness that day, she spoke about her family a lot, and she was excited to show me pictures of her grandkids that she had received over the weekend. The second day when I brought the dog back, she said, oh, look who you brought back, and I asked her how she was doing. She said, I'm okay. She stated that she feels better, but still not to the fullest because she had been sick in the previous weeks. She thanked me for bringing the dog back, and she said that she loved the visits. Her mood, she smiled many times throughout the visit. She raised her voice when she talked to the dog like she had before, and she pet the dog goodbye. The connectedness, she shared stories again about previous pets she had, but she also spoke about her family that day too. And the last day, I asked her how she was doing. She said, I'm okay. Her mood, she wasn't happy to be going to lunch that day because she usually ate lunch in her room. So she had to go to the cafeteria that day. And there was no connectedness, and she did not mention the dog. So in my findings, I found that rather than decreasing depression, I found that with the resident there was more of a connection, and it affected her loneliness rather than affecting her depression. Because every time I had the dog with her, she always brought up this connection of a pet from the past, and I had a pet there, and she shared stories about our families. And the days that I didn't happen to have the dog there, she didn't really bring up much stories or connectedness. So in conclusion, nursing homes in the Jacksonville area should consider pets or pet therapy for the elderly to decrease loneliness. Further research should be done on the effectiveness of pets in reducing loneliness in elderly nursing home residents. And my research showed that pet therapy provided good company to the elderly rather than affecting the depression.
Are there any questions for Anna?
I have one. Do you feel like the connection to the connectedness that would have helped with the loneliness over time would have decreased the internal psychological effects of depression?
Yeah. Time was definitely a restraint. And I mean, if more, because loneliness and depression do go hand in hand. So I mean, if it helped with the loneliness later on, over maybe if it was a semester, a year long, it would have eventually affected the depression. Yeah.
Sure. And then just a second question: do you feel like the other kind of contextual things of her life then had an impact on your results with her family and
Yeah, definitely.
and things with the cafeteria and the van?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Being at the nursing home and just the different things that go around the nursing home. Yeah.
Sure.
So do you feel like you met, like, what was your expectation going in?
Expectation going in was that it would affect her depression, but it didn't. So, but rather I found that, I mean, it affected her loneliness.
Great. So she shared more stories with the dog around versus complaining.
Yeah.
Maybe. Okay.
I have a question. Do you think it make a difference between like what type of dog it would be? Like the small dog, a lap dog would be
Yeah.
a lap versus a
Well, that's what the dog I brought in, that's why I did take that into consideration. I wanted to make sure it was a small dog that could sit on her lap and have that contact with the dog. And rather than a big dog who would just sit by the chair under her feet, which she could have contact with, but I felt like being able to sit on her lap is more, helped more, yeah.
Great. Thank you very much.